Awesome. Hey everyone, Adam Kanakin here. We're at ILEETA 2022. With me, Jason Devlin. Thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it.
Last time I saw you, we were in Spokane at the NAFTO conference. You're here teaching this week.
I am.
What are we talking about this week?
So Next Gen FTO program is the main big idea, but ultimately I'm here specifically teaching about debriefing and training activities that you can do with your trainees that kind of support that program.
Well, let's talk about those. Let's break those down and give some tools to the people. So in your class, what are those key takeaways? What are the things that we're talking about?
So key takeaways are understanding the fundamentals of field training, which is that experiential learning cycle. Number one, we want to get them out there doing something, experiencing an event, right? And then after that, as a good field trainer, we need to make sure that we specifically debrief that event of all the things that happened in that specific moment. But then what I've got to do is go that next step of say, hey, how do we generalize this now? How do we carry this forward into every traffic stop we do from now? How do we carry this forward into every shoplifting call we go to? What do you want to bring the rest of that? And then we go out and we experiment more with it. We go out and we handle more of those calls and grab more repetition. And so in that experiential learning model, what we're doing is taking the debriefs and saying, hey, here's some different ways that you can debrief with your trainees to get more and better information. Because one of the biggest issues in our debriefs as law enforcement is we think it's telling the person what they did good and what they did bad. But if I can ask them questions and get them to talk back to me about what they did right, areas they want to improve on, things they want to change, now they own that information, whereas the other way around, it's me owning the information and they decide whether they like it or not. But if it's them telling me by answering the questions I ask as a good field trainer, they're taking the ownership of that, and what that's doing is helping to dictate my training with them.
Yeah, you know, there's all these terms that people use, debrief, AAR, hot wash, whatever you want to call it. I mean, all of them technically are a bit different, but people like to interchange them because it's fun to do. But I think that's a critical component is you have to identify what is the purpose of it.
Yes.
If you're doing an AAR after a contact and we're back and we're going through and breaking down all of the pieces, that's different than doing a debrief with an officer after a call in a car.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what is that fundamental difference in debriefs that FTOs need to focus on when they're doing this with their trainees?
Main fundamental difference between that and the AAR is the AAR, it's a group coming together to talk about that, right? In the environment of a field training, it's one-on-one, which we need to be cognizant of what our relationship is with that trainee, because the more I can get them to buy into the things that I'm talking about with them, the training I'm giving them, and get them to find the answers on their own, the better their learning is going to be and the better our relationship's going to be. So the better our relationship with the trainee is going to be, the easier they're going to accept the information that I'm teaching, showing them, and that just speeds up the learning. Sometimes when we take on that role of being a field trainer and it's just us shooting information at them constantly, telling them what they did right, telling them what they did wrong, what happens is they can build those walls and defense mechanisms because they feel like they're failing or not meeting up to expectations. And so if we get them answering those questions going into that stuff, we maintain that one-on-one relationship. And what you find is it allows your training to go much smoother, and they're more accepting of the information coming at them.
You know, this came up in conversation multiple times already during my interviews this week, but FTOs have the most amount of face-to-face time with new officers.
Absolutely.
It's by a lot.
Yep.
And so the conversation I had previously today was that we have to do a better job of training our FTOs as instructors and giving them the skills of adult learning, giving them all of those concepts, because for some reason it seems like they're the ones that are kind of left to just be like, oh, well, you're just show them what you do.
Yep.
Right?
That's right. Yep.
And we give a lot of focus to academy instructors or in-service instructors and instructor development programs, and FTOs sometimes kind of get left behind.
Oh, absolutely.
So what can we do as an industry, as agencies, to better serve our FTOs, to make our FTOs better?
So some things we can do to do that is think about how do we progress the field training program in general, because when you think of the two major models that are out across the United States, and probably over 90% of the agencies, those are 30 and 50 years old. We don't have anything left in law enforcement that's 30 and 50 years old except for these FTO programs. And most of them are focused on documentation and covering the agencies in liability and stuff, as opposed to teaching the FTO how to actually talk and interact and teach with those adult learners like you were talking. One of the big things that I bring up is how to build influence with your trainees. And I tell them it's the 4 C's: contact, communicate, connection, commitment. So they have the contact times built in. It's one-on-one between FTO and trainee driving around together. Communication is us talking, but more importantly on the side of the FTO is listening from the things, looking for the cues, because that communication is both not only verbal, but the nonverbal side, right? If you see him white-knuckling a steering wheel, that's communication to you, the FTO. You hear the heavy breathing, that's communication to you as the FTO. So we communicate, and then what we've got to do is find ways that we can connect with those trainees. What are things we have in common? What are their motivations for wanting to be a cop, for learning, wanting to do better? Because no one comes into this with poor motivations. They always have the good motivation. So if I can find that, I can use that to spur the learning along. And then finally, once we get them to believe those first 3 C's about us, the fourth one is we now get their commitment because they've seen our commitment to actually helping them and our commitment to helping them fail forward and fail fast so that they're getting better and learning this job appropriately, as opposed to it just being about me documenting what they did right, what they did wrong, and then scoring them and kind of hammering them on scores, where that starts to shut down learning.
Yeah. Failing forward. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that term. It's kind of that akin to you either win or you learn.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Like the same idea with all of that happens, and you brought it up too with the scoring system, with these antiquated field training models.
Right.
It was interesting because when we spoke at the NAFTO conference, you were talking about like why we need to go away from that rough scoring, like evaluation type model,
right?
Because like you had said, you create, and this was another, Kerry Manseer earlier this week was talking about when you have a student come into a class, they're either in survival mode or executive mode. Their brain can only be in one of two.
Right.
And when you have a rookie come into a car with an FTO, that beginning of that shift, they're in survival mode.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so, but understanding that adult learning principle and having that FTO, giving that FTO the skills and abilities to be able to take that new officer and get them into a state of executive function where they can actually start absorbing and learning and
right.
working on new information and new skills. Right?
Yep.
And when you do that evaluation component where they think every single thing I'm doing is being scrutinized, you've pretty much lost the game from the start.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, you've completely lost it. It's the ridiculousness of thinking you're going in to go take a calculus class and they hand you the calculus final to start taking as she starts teaching on the board. That's the concept that a lot of these old FTO models is based on, And so in next gen field training, that's one thing we said is let's cut that out. Let's actually teach you the class first. We're going to give you phases with these FTOs to learn the job of being a cop where we do fail forward, right? The expectation is engage, get involved, work to a level where you make the mistake or you don't know where to go. That's when the FTO knows to jump in, give you training, teach you what to do. And then from there, we go out and we do it again and we take you a little bit further each time. And we're going to do that over and over and over through those first 3 phases. And then we come back and we say, okay, now we're going to evaluate you because we've taught you everything we need to taught you to be that solo capable baseline officer. And in fact, one of the next gen classes that I taught, a guy actually gave an even better definition of what we're shooting for in the end is it's not just the solo capable officer, it's the solo capable officer that you want to work with. And I was like, man, that's important because you could literally be going from the training car one day to them sitting in briefing right next to you the next day. And that's such a huge concept, and it gets buy-in from your FTOs when they start realizing that idea and saying, oh man, I need to feed into this because they could be the one backing me up tomorrow as a solo capable cop. So I need to make someone that I want to work with and be a part of that.
Yeah, that's a concept too, is, taking ownership as an instructor. Mm-hmm. When we have somebody come into a class, and it doesn't matter what type of class it is, knowing that when they leave that class, especially if you're still active and you're working within that agency, those are your peers.
Yes.
You're the instructor today, but tomorrow you could be on the same call.
Absolutely.
And that's such a hypercritical component. And that goes back to the first thing you said, which is that relationship building.
Yes. And
how key it is to have those relationships.
Right.
One thing I do want to ask you, because with FTOs, there always and will be, it's human and human, so sometimes there's conflict in personalities and stuff like that.
Yep.
What can we do to mitigate some of that for FTOs, where they have a recruit where it's just like oil and water?
Right.
Like where Where do you go from that point? Because like day one, you're like, I know this is going to be rough.
Yeah.
What do you say to those FTOs?
So there's a couple of things within the program itself. One of the things we did was we removed scoring from those first 3 phases, because that takes away some of that animosity between learner and teacher right off the bat. Because now it's just, hey, I'm evaluating you in what we talk about and what I teach you, versus me giving you a 3, a 2, a 1, whatever your scoring system is. Because no human wants to fail. And the minute we see that failure thing, there goes a little bit of a barrier and brings up some defensiveness, right? So the program alone can help with some of that animosity between that. But the other one is, how do we approach it from day one, and how are we starting to build that relationship right off the bat? One thing I talk to our FTOs about is I say, look, the first time they get to you, tell them, hey, everything we do from here on out is for your success. You might not like what I have to say, but I'm always going to be telling it to you for your success. And if you can get them to believe that, they'll be taking in that information. But even think ahead of that, right? Be predictive even before that. You find out you're getting a trainee coming to you, shoot them an email. Go find them in Post Academy and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm going to be your FTO. I'm excited to be with you. Here's my phone number. Here's the phone numbers of the people on my squad. We're excited to have you come up there. And right there, you've started mitigating that relationship thing way ahead of the game, because now they feel welcome and invited to coming there, as opposed to the new trainee that walks into a briefing room the first time and can't figure out where to sit down, right? Because they walk over here and they go, nope, that's so-and-so's seat. And then they go over there, nope, that's so-and-so's seat. And then they finally move to the back of the room in the corner and just sit there quietly, and they've already started shutting down. So if we start thinking ahead of the game and be predictive and, hey, what's that like? What's that feel like, right? Empathy. Have a little empathy as the FTO for what that trainee is probably feeling like coming to a new squad and a new trainer, and see what you can do to start mitigating that. And man, you really start building that relationship fast, and you prevent yourself from really getting into those situations.
I love those points. Those are phenomenal tips. I have one last question for you.
Shoot.
Brother. Why come to ILEETA?
Man, so many reasons, but it's the shared information. It's seeing the top instructors that are out there, and it's just the fact that everybody gets to network, interact, and you don't have people hoarding ideas, where so many times you see these silos built up at agencies or departments, and they don't want to share anything. They've got the coolest, neatest thing they think, but they don't tell or share it with anybody. And so law enforcement as a whole suffers because of that. And when you come here, it's not only the classes, the interactions in between the classes, it's the hanging out after the classes and talking with people and just hearing about all the neat stuff that they're doing. And it's that open sharing of information that makes it just extremely worthwhile to be here.
Well, I appreciate you being here and teaching, and it was awesome to see you again. And we'll probably see you in Louisville. I guess will be the next time.
Absolutely.
Right on, brother.
Thanks,
Okay.
Adam.
Hey everyone, Adam here with ILET. Make sure to check out the other great videos and playlists here on this channel with some of the top instructors in the world. And if you're finding this content actionable and relevant, please consider subscribing and helping us grow ILET into the largest global community for public safety.